Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to the It's Attainable Real Estate Investing Show. It is episode 22, Finding Deals, Finding Deals, Finding Deals. In the last show, we talked about where are you looking for the real estate deal or real estate property, what type of property, and then we got into techniques for finding real estate properties for sale. So we talked about agents, brokers, wholesalers, and the MLS, or multiple listing service. In today's show, we'll continue with the techniques. And the first technique, a very popular technique.
Welcome to the It's Attainable Real Estate Investing Show, where you will learn about investing, the power of real estate investing, and how to invest in it. Whether you have the time or even if you don't, you're going to see it's attainable either way. And now your host, who always wants to share knowledge with you, Christopher Balcom.
And the first technique, a very popular technique, is direct mail. So as we discuss direct mail, first, what is a direct-to-owner relationship or direct-to-owner communication? Well, to this point, we've talked about agents, we've talked about brokers, wholesalers, and the multiple listing service or MLS that agents and brokers use to list the properties for sale. Unwinding a little how those relationships work. The seller goes to the agent or to the wholesaler or to the broker, or in reverse, the wholesalers, the agents, the brokers, they go to the seller. But in either event, the seller, the wholesaler, the broker is in between the seller and the person who is going to purchase the real estate property. So instead of a direct-to-seller communication or a direct-to-seller relationship, we have this indirect relationship or indirect communication between the purchaser of the real estate property or the buyer and the seller. So when we talk about direct-to-seller communication or relationships, this is between the buyer and the seller directly. There's no agent, there's no wholesaler, there's no one in between. It's just the buyer or the investor talking directly to the seller. And as you know, direct communication between two people without anyone in the middle delivering or transcribing or otherwise communicating the message between the two people provides great efficiencies. There's little room for error or miscommunication or misunderstandings. It's just two people communicating. And notice I said two people. With the MLS, as I said in the last show, the agents and brokers, when they list the properties on the MLS or place them on the MLS, it's there for everyone to see. So that could be a lot of competition. With direct-to-owner relationships or direct-to-owner communications, again, it's just two people. So there's no other competition potentially. There could be other buyers who have used some of the techniques we're going to talk about today to contact the seller. So maybe the seller is talking to a few buyers, but in no way are they talking to thousands of buyers or fielding many, many offers. So let's get to it. As I said, direct mail is our first one and it's very popular. Why is it popular? In my opinion, it's popular because it works. And it's also popular because it's tried and true in and outside of real estate. So what do I mean by that, in and outside of real estate? The direct mail dictionary definition is unsolicited advertising sent to prospective customers through the mail. So it doesn't have to be just real estate. For example, if you purchase a vehicle, it won't be soon after that you start getting extended warranty offers in the mail. So it's an unsolicited offer from the company who offers the extended warranty to you. It's unsolicited, but it's somewhat targeted. Since you purchased a vehicle, maybe you need an extended warranty, maybe you don't. But the triggering event was you purchased a vehicle. So you'll start getting those mailers at times, and you'll get them over and over again. And maybe at some point, you will need the extended warranty. Maybe if the vehicle came with an extended warranty and it expires, you might start looking for an extended warranty potentially. And if you do, perhaps that extended warranty postcard or flyer or letter that came in the mail might be within reach. You might receive that mailer right at the time when you need it. Or you might have kept it from before when you did need it. The hope from the extended warranty company is that they have stayed top of mind, and when it comes time for you to purchase an extended warranty, you will look to them. Another example is purchasing a home or primary residence. Similar to purchasing a vehicle, you may receive home warranty letters or home warranty mailers. Or not similar to purchasing a vehicle, you might receive mortgage insurance letters. And speaking of insurance, if your experience is anything like mine, you may constantly receive letters in the mail about switching your insurance or getting quotes from a different insurance company than what you already have for your home or your auto or your renter's insurance. Maybe even life insurance too. All these are forms of direct mail. There's something that the company that is sending you the letter has identified that makes you potentially a match for whatever it is that they are selling or whatever it is that they are offering or whatever service they have that they can potentially provide to you. So whether it was a home purchase and you might need a warranty, whether it's a car purchase and you might need a warranty, or whether at some point you might consider switching your insurance, again, the hope for these companies, the target for these companies is for them to stay top of mind to you at the time when you need the service or at the time that you are considering that type of service. You get these over and over again because when you get the first one in the mail, it probably goes in the trash or some drawer or folder that you're supposed to get back to and you never do. And they send you another one and another one and another one, and maybe at the right time when you need that service or you're considering that service or that product, you'll look to them. So that's direct mail. And with real estate, we follow something similar. The identifying criteria or the target or the triggering event is that the person, the seller, has a property to sell. And you, the buyer or the investor, you send them a letter offering to buy that property. And yes, this is a totally unsolicited letter or mailer. The property wasn't for sale, didn't have a for sale sign, it wasn't a multiple listing service. It just fit your criteria for a property you might be interested in buying. So what's that criteria? In the last show, remember I said it was important to get down in detail about where you're looking and what are you looking for. So the state or city is not good enough because that is thousands, hundreds of thousands of properties. But it's the part of town, it's the neighborhood, because then maybe you're not mailing to hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands or maybe not even 1,000, maybe it's hundreds. And then what type of property? Is it a single family home you want to invest in? Is it a duplex? Is it a triplex? Is it 4 units, 5 units, 100 units? Is it multifamily versus single family? And I said, we're going to talk about multifamily because that's what I invest in, so I can speak to that. So down to the part of town level of detail, the neighborhood level of detail. Some people define a lot of locations by zip code, but with direct mail, you can get down to the neighborhood block. This side of the street, but not that one, or this intersection, but not that one. But minimally, I would say the part of towns you want to invest in and the neighborhoods you want to invest in. I would recommend at least that level of detail. And then your property type. So I said multifamily, maybe you want to invest in single family or a restaurant or an industrial park or some other type of real estate. Still the same process. You need to identify the area you're looking in and then the type of property. So once you've identified your where and your what, your part of town and your neighborhood and your type of property, then what? So now we need to find the owner. I said this was a direct-to-owner communication or direct-to-owner relationship. So we got to find out who the owner is, right? So there are a few ways to do this. One of the popular ones, and our first one we'll talk about, is called lists. 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 You're going to be able to find via a list of properties in a defined area or location who the owners are. And you can get this list from a couple of places. One is county records. Some counties have really good records and some not so good. You can go to the county clerk or the assessor's office and look at their documentation for who the owners are on file for particular properties, and then you mail it to them. Now, at least in the counties that I look in, a lot of records are online, so you don't have to physically go to the office, thankfully, anymore. But with the county records, in either event, in office or online, you're going to start to develop a list of property types in your selected location, and it's going to show you who the owner is, their name, or maybe the company name if the property is in the name of a LLC or some other type of business entity. And it's going to show the mailing address, not of the property, because the owner may not live there, but where the tax bills get mailed to. Typically, the counties, at least here in the U.S., handle the property taxes. So in order for the property taxes to get paid, the owner of the property has to receive the bill to know how much the taxes are. So there's a good chance that the mailing address on file with the county is the accurate address for the owner. One tip that I found is also the utility address, or at least the water utility address on file for the property. In some regions or some counties, the online county records will show the water utility typically paid to the municipality, the city, or the county. The water bill will be listed also, and it'll have an address. Sometimes they match the same address as the property tax or property bill address, and sometimes they don't. My recommendation for if they don't match, then mail to both of them. Now, county records are nice if they're good. And one reason that they're nice is because it's free. You can get all the records. It should be the most up to date because the county is who's handling the transactions of buying and selling and recording. All that's handled during the closing. It gets recorded who the seller was and who the purchaser is and the deeds that get exchanged and so on. So they should have the most up-to-date records. And I keep saying if they're good or not so good. I found that in some counties, the property types is the challenge. I invest in multifamily properties and they can vary greatly in size, right? So you can have 2 units could be considered a multifamily property, or you could have 1,000 units also considered a multifamily property or complex or community. Some counties separate this very well. They will show 2 to 4 units and 5 to 10 units or 5 to 20 units or 21 to 49 units, etc. Some type of breakdown or delineation between the size of the property. And some don't. Some just have a property type called apartments, and you really don't know who you're mailing to. You'd have to look up each individual address, maybe on Google or your favorite search engine, to see a picture or get some description of what the property is. And that just doesn't scale. If you're trying to do that for a few properties, then maybe that's okay. But if you're trying to do that for blocks or entire zip codes or large areas or multiple areas within a county, that just does not scale. You would spend entirely too much time just getting that list together to mail to. Or you would mail to all of them and potentially waste postage or shipping costs to send letters to buy properties that you aren't interested in purchasing at all. Some counties don't even do a good job of separating the property type among classes. So they may just say it's a commercial property, and it could be an apartment building, it could be a factory, it could be a retail store, it could be all these different things. And you just don't know, again, unless you look up each individual address. And just as I said before, that does not scale. It will consume so much of your time just creating the list, and you may send letters about acquiring or purchasing property that you have no interest in property because it doesn't meet your goals, not what you're interested in. And maybe worse, it wastes the time of the seller, because what if they do contact you and say they're willing to have a discussion about selling their property, but it's not something that you're interested in buying? So in those cases, county records, just know they may not be perfect for you. So where else can I find the owners of these properties that I'm interested in purchasing or investing in? There are some paid services. And actually, I should mention, all county records are not free. Some are free, but some are not. Some provide a great website or online tool to be able to access the records totally free, and some charge per record, so it varies. So alternative sources of information can be buying a list. You input your criteria, so the part of town, the neighborhood, the type of property. Some of these paid places where you get lists outside of the county will also add in other criteria that could be helpful also, such as, does a property have a mortgage? If it does, then about how much is left on the mortgage percent-wise? Is it 50%? Is it 25% or 75%? Criteria like this can be helpful because if a property has a mortgage that has 90% of the mortgage still remaining as a balance, then maybe they purchased it more recently and for that reason are not ready to sell. Speaking of when they purchased it, some of these locations where you can buy lists will also tell you how long the owner has owned the property. So you can filter by that criteria. So maybe you say you want to find properties that have been owned by the owner for 10 years or 5 years or 20 years or however many years you think could be beneficial. Probably the more years the better, would be my tip. And you want the mortgage to be paid off at least over 50%, again, would be my tip. And then there's the popular absentee. So absentee means that the owner of the property does not live at the property. And that's a quick way to identify that it's a rental property or something that the owner may not be totally tied to. Because if the owner lives there, then it may be their primary residence. And it's typically considered that if the owner lives there, it's their primary residence, they're not going to be as likely to sell as someone who doesn't live there. I know there's some who may disagree. Probably wholesalers or some wholesalers out there who are, I would consider, usually experts at direct mail because their business relies on it, or it relies at least on some type of direct to seller communication. So they may disagree and have some other type of criteria or some other basis as to why absentee may or may not be the criteria you should use to mail to. But it has worked for me. Selecting absentee or choosing where the owner does not live there, it has worked for me. So the idea with the paid list is that you are able to input your criteria. So I talked about location again, property type, absentee, how long the owners owned the property, mortgage information, and more information that these list companies have. One popular one and one that I've used is ListSource. So another tip, listsource.com is one that I have used. listsource.com is one that I have used successfully and generated lists. But in either case, whether you create a list from the county records or from a paid source like ListSource, the information you need in your list is the property address and then the address of the owner. And you're going to send letters or postcards or flyers. I've received all the above, but you're going to send these in the mail to the owner, letting them know that you are interested in purchasing their property. Now, if you're thinking, oh, this is too much for me, I'm not interested in looking at county records or contacting or paying for a list from ListSource or some other company, this is just too much. I don't want to do this. It takes too much time or it's too hard. Then you'll have to think about, is active investing for you or is passive investing for you? Active investing means you are the person out looking for deals or opportunities to invest in. You're the person handling the transaction. You're the person taking care of or at least hiring a company or someone to take care of the property after it's purchased. A passive investor simply invest their dollars into the real estate opportunity or the real estate property and receive some amount of return for that investment. They typically will have no say-so in the day-to-day or may not even be interested in having any say-so in the day-to-day ongoing upkeep of the property or taking care of the property operationally. They won't be a part of the transaction of purchasing the property and acquiring a loan from the bank if there's a mortgage involved. They won't be looking for the deals. They won't be looking for the opportunities. So you'll have to think if passive or active investing is right for you. Either one's okay. It just depends on your goals. Now, if you do want to be an active investor or you are an active investor and you do want to perform direct mail, because you don't have to, you could rely on just agents, brokers, wholesalers, the MLS to find your deals for you. Or you can go one step further and also do some mailing as well. All these are just tools. You don't have to use just one. Just one probably won't work, but together you can use the right tool for the right time. So going back, if you are an active investor or you want to be an active investor and you want to do direct mail but don't want to do this much work, there are companies out there that can handle it for you. You still need to think about your location, the part of town, the property type. But in terms of drafting the letter or the postcard, there are some companies out there that can at least do that part for you. So it's not totally hands-off. Again, if you want totally hands-off investing, it's probably best that you be a passive investor. We can talk more about that. Reach out to me, or an active investor. And still, you can reach out to me. We can talk more about maybe some sample letters that I've used in the past, and I can probably show you some I've received in the mail too that were pretty eye-catching. The companies that can do this for you, there's lots of them out there. I'm just gonna mention a couple, as REI Print Mail and Yellow Letters. So those are two companies that I've looked at more recently in terms of outsourcing this to companies to do for me, and those are just two companies. But there's a whole lot more out there, and you can do some research on your own and consider if they can provide the services you want. So you want some type of letter or postcard that's going to be catching to the owner or the seller when they receive it in the mail. You don't want it to hit the trash can. It'd be nice if it's something that they open immediately and read. So sometimes there's some disguise to make it not look like junk mail or bulk mail that they receive in the mail. And then it needs to have a design that's going to be catching to make your letter stand out or postcard stand out from potentially others who are also sending letters or postcards. So there's some time and there's some thought that needs to be put into it. And these companies, REI Print Mail, Yellow Letters, and others, they'll have some designs for you to choose from and look at so that you can see what works or what you think will work. The good thing is that you don't have to stick with just one. You can try one type of format 1 month and a different type of format a different month, or weeks every other month, or however often you decide to mail. You can decide to choose different designs and then track what worked successfully. Which one did you not get any calls back on, or which one did you get some calls back on? Direct mail is going to be just like those continued insurance offers and extended warranty offers and all other types of mail that you get that somewhat match the criteria for something, a product or a service you might use, but it's not something you specifically asked for. Just like you get those letters over and over again, you're going to mail over and over again to sellers or potential sellers or owners of real estate property. So you've got multiple opportunities to change the format, change the color, change the font, make something bigger, something smaller, change the envelope. There's just all different types of things that we can talk about and discuss, and you can look at some samples online as well. I'm going to read one from a postcard that I've used. It's Dear Seller, and I will usually put their name there because I've got the records. I'm a local real estate specialist in the area and have an interest in purchasing the property you own at 1234 ABCD Drive, City, State, Zip. So just giving an example there, the address. My intentions are to purchase the property in as-is condition, so you don't need to make any changes or repairs, and there are no inspections, commissions, gimmicks, or waste of time. This keeps things very straightforward so we can move quickly, closing on your property in a short amount of time. I go on to say that if you are ready to move forward and remove the stress of owning multiple properties, time, money, tenants, or evictions, call me at 1234-5678-7890, so the number I want them to call me at. And when you call, you can listen, learn, and leave a message, and I will call you back within 24 hours. You may also leave a message to be removed from my mailing list. If you are not interested at this time, please do keep this letter for future use or a friend's use. Kind regards, Chris. So it's pretty simple. Maybe some would consider it long-winded. Some would say it's too short. But it's worked for me so far, and I'll continue to mail that letter or postcard and maybe make some modifications. In some areas I've mailed to, I've gotten really good responses, and some I have gotten no responses. So I do have some work to do, at least in the area where I'm not getting any responses. Something I'm doing is not catching the owner's attention. Maybe they're just not interested in selling, so that could be it too. But I probably could do something with the design or the color or the postcard or letter to maybe get some feedback from those owners or sellers. So one more tip, and this is not something I have utilized myself, but I've heard from fellow investors, peers, that they've had success with it, and I wouldn't bring it to you or mention it to you here if I didn't think it at least made sense. And that is considering the criteria of delinquent taxes. Now, I don't know that ListSource or some of the other paid list services offer that information, but counties certainly have a delinquent tax list. They may even publish this in the newspaper. One of the counties that I am near, they publish this in the newspaper, usually at the end, near the end of each year. So you can look at the properties on this delinquent tax list, or the properties that are listed in the newspaper by the county for delinquent taxes are firstly in the what? Location, of course. We've talked about that. The location of the area, the part of town, the neighborhood that you are interested in purchasing or investing in. And then what was the other identifying criteria for you? The property type. So you can see if this is a type of property that you're interested in purchasing. Is it a single family home? Is it a industrial building? Is it a mall? Is it a shopping complex? Is it a multifamily property like what I invest in, apartment buildings? So the thought behind delinquent taxes is if the taxes are delinquent, maybe the seller or maybe the owner is having some type of hardship or just disinterest in the property. So it's possible that you may be able to help them out. If they have some reason as to why they want to sell or some reason they have to sell, then it may be a great time for them to talk with someone about buying the property. So you're matching the need of the person. All right, so we've talked at length about direct mail and lists. And again, direct mail is tried and true. There are many different ways to do it, and we could talk about it for hours and look at different samples and examples and different things to type in the letter, or handwrite the letter, or use a postage stamp or some other type of way to pay for the postage on the letter to catch the seller's attention. All right, moving on from direct mail or direct mail on its own. Driving for dollars. What is driving for dollars? So I talk about this one because it's what I've been taught, but it's also what I have used. And again, only sharing information here that is either firsthand knowledge from me or firsthand knowledge from peers or others who actually are in this business. So driving for dollars. Driving for dollars is where you use your, what did I say? That your identifying criteria was going to be very important. So your location of your ideal properties you want to purchase and the property type that you want to purchase. So you use that criteria to drive those areas, those parts of town or those neighborhoods, those communities that you're interested in purchasing in. And ideally you look for properties that you just want to purchase just because this looks like a property I would like to own. Or you take it a step further and try to identify something about the property that may lead you to believe that the owner may want to sell the property, or leads you to believe that the owner should sell the property because of its condition. And condition is what we're going to talk about. What are some red flags? What are some additional details or criteria you can look for when you're driving through these neighborhoods that you're interested in purchasing, and looking at the types of properties that you also want to purchase? And these are just some. This is, I would say, including but not limited to these items. So if it's a neighborhood where the lawn is well kept and the landscaping is nice for all the houses, if you see one that has overgrown landscaping like tall grass or overgrown shrubs or trees and such, that could be a target property for you. Boarded up or broken windows. Depending on what your level of risk tolerance is, maybe you're looking for a property that is totally vacant. So boarded up or broken windows of a house that's in a otherwise nice neighborhood will let you know that this might be a target property for you. Maybe looking at the mailbox. If the mailboxes are in the neighborhood where those are attached to the house and you can see the mailers in the mailbox coming out of the mailbox, maybe that's some type of delineation that the house is vacant. What about just deferred maintenance? And I call it deferred maintenance. Maybe the house needs to be painted or the siding is hanging off a little bit. Maybe you can tell it needs a new roof because the roofing shingles are curled up or starting to fall off, or you see a lot of missing shingles. What about code enforcement? Some areas or some counties, some municipalities will put really bright orange or green or some other type of color sticker or label on the door or window of the front of the property, something to catch people's attention when there's some type of code enforcement, landscaping, or some municipalities that require a city inspection in order for occupants to reside or live in the home. There may be a sticker for that. Taxes, potentially. Maybe there's a sticker on the door saying the taxes are delinquent and they're going to be foreclosed upon. Some or all of these items, and as I said, this is included but not limited to. There may be some other things that are indicators or really makes a house or a property or an apartment building stick out from all the other properties in the neighborhood. So what do you do when you see these properties, these outlier properties, these properties that stand out as something you might be interested or should be interested in purchasing? Firstly, you want to write down the address, the full address of the property, and I would also say as a tip to take a picture. So when you get back to a stationary location and you look at your list of property addresses that you've been driving for the day or for the week or however long a duration for the list that you've developed, the picture will help you remember that property. And maybe in the next step, which is going to be sending a letter to the owner, you can mention some of the things you saw from the property or from the picture. So the idea is that you've identified these properties and now you're going to mail it to the owners. And you can say something similar like what I read earlier. Or as I said, there's plenty other samples and letters and postcards and what the content of the letter or the postcard should be. But now you've developed your own targeted or custom list yourself. You started, of course, with your location and then the property type, and then you're able to drive those neighborhoods to the location and see if there's any properties that stick out. So you've got this targeted list of maybe instead of thousands or hundreds, maybe it's only 5 or 10, but it's something that you obtain yourself, which limits the competition because you drove by this property yourself and it wasn't something that was easily found online. You wouldn't be able to tell that the windows were boarded up of this property or that the roof needed shingles or that the grass was overgrown or that the mailbox was running over with mail. You can't tell that from the county records. You can't tell that from ListSource or any other paid for services to obtain lists. So you drive, you make the list, you take a picture, and when you get stationary, you can look up the records, typically from the county's website. For just individual records, I would recommend the county website or the county assessor if you want to go into the office. But you'll have these targeted, these individual, this smaller amount of addresses that you'll input to the county, whether in person or online, and it will tell you the owner's mailing address. And it should say their name or business name as well. And you'll send a letter, and another letter, and another letter, and they will call you when they are ready to sell or to have a discussion about selling. Now, as I said, direct mail is tried and true. If you talk to any real estate investor or wholesaler, or probably even an agent or broker, you'll hear about direct mail. You may hear about driving for dollars from wholesalers and investors also. But one thing no one ever told me or never heard anyone talk about is something that has been mildly successful for me. And that's instead of mailing a letter, this is the tip, doing some research on the owners for a phone number and calling them. It's somewhat of a cold call, which direct mail is also. It's I guess you can say a cold mailer because it is unsolicited and so is the phone call. But when I get the name of the person who owns the property or the company who owns the property, I will search for their phone number, pick up the phone and call them and tell them, similar to the mailer that I send out, but in a much shorter fashion, that I'm a local real estate specialist or investor in the area and I was looking to purchase their property. I own some other ones in the area. This would be a good match. Their property seems nice, if it seems nice, and I would like to have a discussion with them about purchasing their property. And in the event of direct mail or phone calls, it may not turn into an immediate sale, but at least the seller is aware that I want to purchase their property or that you want to purchase their property. So it opens up the discussion or it opens up the lines of communication, which is how we started this show. It opens up the direct to seller or direct to owner communication between the buyer or the investor and the seller or the owner. So when you're searching for your next deal, which technique will you use? Agents, brokers, wholesalers? Will you search the MLS or multiple listing service? Or will you employ direct mail by getting a list together from the county records? Or a paid service like ListSource? Or a manual list, a unique list, a target list by driving for dollars? And when you get rid of the mail, will you send a postcard? Will you send a letter that you designed for your own? Or will you outsource it to someone like REI Print Mail, Yellow Letters, or others? Or instead of sending a postcard or letter, will you just pick up the phone next time? Well, I'll bring you back to one point. Remember that these are all tools. And when using tools, no one tool can be utilized for everything. And the same goes for finding deals in real estate. No one tool can be used to find all the deals. I hope you found this show helpful. If you did, or even if you didn't, let me know. I'm at neelyrealty.com/engage. That's NILEE realty.com/engage. Now, if you did find this show helpful, do me one favor and share this show with someone else. And I'll see them and you back here next time on the It's Attainable Real Estate Investing Show.
You have been listening to the It's Attainable Real Estate Investing Show, sharing transparent knowledge on investing and the powerful impact real estate investing can have on your wealth and lifestyle. Follow or subscribe to the show using your favorite podcast app so you'll know firsthand when a new show is released, or visit neelyrealty.com/podcast and see the show there. That's NILEE realty.com/podcast.